Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on a reel I picked up as part of a larger sale of fishing reels. I like this one. I think I'm going to tune this one up and take it fishing, see how it performs. This is the Abu Garcia Silver Max. It's a 6-ball bearing reel. It has a flipper switch override on it. Right now it seems to be in the on position. Here's your off position. Everything checks out on it. When I bought it, I was told that it was used, but the fellow just wanted to move on to a different reel and he was interested in selling it. I got this one and I got an Ambassador along with it as part of the purchases. So I thought for those of you that have a Silver Max at home, we can show you how to take this apart and service it. For those of you that are interested in buying one of these, well, you'll see how it's made. And we'll do our best to go over the features and functions as we check it out. Generally speaking, I don't flip reels. I don't just buy them and kind of put them out there on the internet or the like. I do like to, at a minimum, take it apart, make sure everything inside of it is right. And this just helps with my continuing education when I buy a reel that maybe I haven't worked on in a while. As I mentioned, we're along the New Jersey seaboard, and we don't see a lot of bait casting reels. We're seeing more now. These are gaining in popularity for inshore saltwater fishing. This one's got braid on it. It may have even been used in that capacity, but for the most part, it's still a lesser percentage of these reels versus the conventional or the spin fishing reels in the area that I'm in. So I don't see a lot of them. All right, so let's get started by taking off the exterior pieces. That includes the handle and the star drag and the like. And while I do that, I want to thank our first responders and essential personnel and everybody that's involved in keeping us safe during this pandemic. That's our uniformed services, our fire, our EMTs, the police, the first aid squads and the like. And it's also the folks that are keeping us, trying to keep us as much normalized as possible with food deliveries, transportation networks, and all of the infrastructures. Thank you for what it is that you do. There's a 10mm nut. We're going to take that off so that we can remove the handle. I'm going to remove the handle, and we'll take the star adjuster off next. Now this is a good place to tell you to take pictures along the way. That way, if you get lost as you're doing it, you don't have to search YouTube to find my video. You can simply look at your pictures. It'll tell you the sequence that you took these off in. It'll tell you the orientation of certain pieces and parts, and it'll also help you get back on track if you get off track there. All right, so we've just taken the star adjuster off. There's a couple of pieces behind there. It's a good place to take a picture. Don't trust your memory. There's 2 tension washers, and there's a click noisemaker in this one. It's always good to note which way that noisemaker is facing. So there's a lip on that noisemaker that faces down. And you have 2 tension washers. And all of that, if you flip it and put it into the star adjuster, it's a good way to remember how those pieces go. All right, I want to take the side plate off here. That it's got a thumb screw. Pull that out, and then you should be able to lift up or push down. I'm not sure which way this one goes. Lifting up, I guess, is the answer there. If you lift it up a little bit, you should be able to pull that out. Spool came out with it. This has got a mag plate on it. You don't need to do anything with the mag plate. I've seen people take these things off and push them around and lose the little mag cylinders and the like. You don't need to do anything there. There is a bearing in the middle for the spool, so go ahead and oil that bearing. I oil the bearings. I'm using Reelex, which is an aftermarket fishing reel grease. Doesn't really matter to me which grease you use, but it does matter that you use a fishing reel grease. We have a bearing on this side of the spool. I want to do the same thing. I've tested the reel. The reel was doing fine. I tested it before I bought it. We have some braid on here. Now, a fella told me that was just added to the reel. When I play around with it, I may or may not change out the braid. It depends on if I like the performance of the reel and whether I'm going to keep it to fish locally or if I'm going to give it away or sell it. If I do the latter, I'll take the braid off of this and make sure that it has fresh braid. You can see inside the reel one of the reasons why you want to take that side plate off is we go to remove the other side plate. There's a screw here that's hiding inside, and we're going to have to remove that screw in order to get the other side plate off. Don't know how or what you can see of that, but it's there. It's a black-sided screw. There's 3 screws on the outside. Usually there's a 4th one hiding below. There is, and there's a 5th one inside there. So we got to take all of those off to get at the gear side plate. So let's do that. These are Phillips headed screwdrivers. You could also use a flat blade on them. There is a through slot there. As I take them off, I want to make sure that I lay them on my desk because I'm not certain if all of these screws are the same size. They're not. So the one that comes up here that holds that little shield on there for the line guide has got a machined or a fine threaded screw. The other one is rough. This one is shorter. All right. If we continue with that, this is where pictures help, because if you go to put them back in and you put them in incorrectly, they could affect the performance of the reel. Okay, the 2 on this side are the same. Come around to the back here. All right, so we have 3 screws that are the same. One that's shorter that we noted is going to go into that little bezel there. And we got one more. If you tried to pull this off now, it's not going to come off because we still have that screw underneath here. That one's easy to identify because it has the case coloring on it. It's a black-headed screw, so that will not be confused with the other ones that you just took out. But you do need to notice it. That's that one. And then once we do that, now we should be able to remove that side plate. That's going to pull out the bar that ties in the gearing, or this side plate here. So you'll notice that I'm putting the pieces and parts into a parts tray. The bigger case pieces I can leave out to the side because they're not going to be that effective. Quick notes, right? There's a lot of evaporation on the grease. There's what sometimes is called varnishing when the grease dries, and all of that needs to kind of be cleaned up and replaced. Before I do much more on this reel, I like to remove the 2 yoke springs. They have a habit of shooting out, and boy, if they land on anywhere but your parts tray, you're going to be in trouble. So take those out. Now you can remove the main gear. Now you can remove the yoke and the pinion gear, and normally you would go about doing a cleanup here. There's not much to clean up, so the greases that are in here have evaporated or yellowed out. You want to check all features and functions. Just give it an eyeball. Make sure that you're working here. Those gears are working fine. Everything seems clean, and we can kind of go ahead and put that down. It's there, and then we can manually trip it up. That's working fine. I recommend oils, not greases, on these moving parts. That's up to you, but I think grease traps dirt, and I would prefer not to have that. There's 2 screws here, and sometimes there's a bearing hiding underneath here, so I'm going to pull those 2 screws just to see if that's the case. If it is, you want to take care of that. If it's not, we'll at least see what's going on the other side. Sometimes that gets overlooked in reel repair. Easy enough to overlook it. Sometimes you make assumptions that are wrong. And those I'm just going to lay right on the desk because they're going right back in. That's a good place for a picture so that you have the orientation of where those screws go. Let's pull that out, and sure enough we have a bearing under there. So let's go ahead and oil that. Make sure it's clean visually, inspect. And then we can just put it right back in. And I almost put it in upside down, so there you go. That's the reason why you would take a picture. Don't trust your memory. All right, got 2 holes here, so let's just go put that back in. These reels are very popular. They're relatively reasonably priced. They last, and I haven't seen many come in with a lot of issues. That's why when the fellow was mentioning that he had a bait caster there, I said, you know, I wanted to know a little bit more. Again, I don't have a big market for it. I like them myself. I do use them. But if you're going to go and hold on to a reel or maybe possibly sell it, you need to make sure that the reel has a certain pedigree to it, or at least know that the reel is going to be subject to certain issues, because you want to represent that the right way when talking to your customers. Okay, there's two sides on this reel you're going to notice on this bridge. One of them is going to have a ramp. It's an angular piece, goes like this. This goes to the back of the reel, like that. And then on your gear, you're going to notice that you have a slotted side, and you have the gear side, if you will. So the slotted side goes to the back. It's going to accept the angle from the spool. And then you're just going to line up your threaded or your toothed side of this gear so that it goes internally. This one I'm going to use grease on. Then we just can go lay that right back in. Again, remember there's an angle here. You can see it. That angle goes inside so that the spool release can push it up. You'll see how it fits there in that little channel. So you need to make sure that that's done right. I'm going to leave those springs off for a moment. It's going to come over to the main gear. I want to clean that. Notice the orientation on this side of the click ratchet. It's when you're looking at the bottom of the gear, it's in the teeth are kind of circling in a counterclockwise motion. So I will take that off because I want to just clean off the excess and tarnished grease on the back end of the gear. Sometimes you can just wipe it off. If it's particularly stubborn, go ahead and use a penetrating oil. This will be for demonstration purposes. It's cleaned up there. There's tarnish on this, but there's nothing you can do with the tarnish. Make sure that the inside of the case of that main gear is clear as well. That's what's going to provide you your drag. Remember what I said? We have a gear. We have the washer. You don't need to do anything with that. And this counter washer then, where the gear is all going to set down, is going to go like this. So flip it over, take that gear. It's rectangular. Make sure that it seats properly onto the post of the axle shaft there. Put your hard washer on. You don't need to do anything with the hard washer. Then come over and take your gear on a soft brush and just kind of go through the channels of the gear teeth just to make sure that there's nothing stuck in there. Sometimes you get poor performance, a piece of line is broken or something. You always want to make sure on those that you've got that right. Check the teeth, make sure that they're not injured in any way, bent or damaged. And then put a good amount of grease on there. You don't have to get grease in every tooth, but get grease onto that gear. This one seems to be a little bit different. I'm going to have to go check schematics than some of the other Silver Maxes that I'm on. Silver Maxes have been around a while. It's a generational thing. I think maybe they've upped the gear ratio or something else in that regard. Okay, here's our drag washer is next. That's again, this is a hard washer. You don't need to do anything with the hard washer other than make sure it's clean. And we have our metal washer, and then we have this little flat washer, which is going to, after you install the main gear, come on up, watch this little thing. This guy wants to shoot all the time, so keep your finger on that, but we want to service the line guide next before we finish the close-up here. So I'm using a micro screwdriver to take the two small screws out, holding my hand on a little flipper switch there. So there's two screws on each side, very small screws. They're going to hold the little bezel that's over the top of this. Pull that out, and now we want to remove the pawl cap. So we want to check the pawl. A little vibration will generally push the pawl out. There's a little washer there. Make sure you don't lose that. Put that right in the cup. You should be able to grab that pawl and pull that out. Sometimes you'll need a little pliers. Your fingers are too big like mine. And you want to check the shoulders on the pawl. This one's totally clean. You want to make sure that there's no grease accumulated in there, and you also want to check the teeth on it to make sure that they're all squared up. Okay, we're going to put a little bit of oil into there. I'm going to put a little bit of oil onto the worm gear. I'm going to put our carrier back on. I'm just moving this, make sure that that's moving. I'll put the bezel back on. Grab our 2 screws. Put those in. So if you like these kinds of videos, I post an awful lot of them on all kinds of fishing reels and repairs. And the best way to stay on top of these is to subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please hit the notification button. That way you'll see all the ones that I'm posting, and you'll be able to make a determination as to whether that's something that you want to watch or not. If it's a reel that happens to matter in your area of the country or the world. And sometimes it's just good to learn how these things come together and come apart, if you will. What the weak points are on them, where they fail, and so on. And subscriptions with notifications are the best. If you have a question on this or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one and you're stuck, let me know on that, and I'll try to answer that for you as well. All right, just making sure that it's all held together. I particularly wanted to pay attention to that one. We're going to take the ferrule now that belongs on the shaft. There's a ferrule and a small washer. The ferrule goes first, and the washer. We have 2 springs left for the yoke. We want to go into our parts tray and get those. And then we want to just line up our crossbar, which is going to hold the other side plate in. We're going to oil our back bearing. If we haven't done that already, I'm maybe losing it here. And then we can go ahead and line the crossbar up with the hole, the top bar up with the gear set, and that should come together nicely. There you go. So we have a solid seam all the way around. It's done what it needs to do. Come on back over here then. Remember, we have the different screws. The 3 screws are the same. This is a test. Where do they go? Well, one goes here, one goes here, and one goes in the back. So if you like this video, please like it. Somehow, some way that's supposed to affect my YouTube rankings. I would appreciate it if you like it, to kind of leave some support with me there. And this one happens to be a reel that I acquired, but a lot of reels that I work on that you will see on the channel are customer reels. And kind of, you're in my shop looking over my shoulder. If you have a reel that you would like serviced, please contact me by email on the business card that follows, and I'll be happy to provide you with the service and repair information. That black-headed screw goes in where the spool belongs. And then looking at my parts tray, I got one more screw, and that's the small one that's going to connect the side plate over here by the bezel. Let's get that in. So overall, I like the reel. It's substantial. It's a high speed. It's got 6 ball bearings. I haven't counted them all. I think some of them are in the handle. But that's okay. I don't need to know where all of them are. We have our next up then would be the click mechanisms. And I guess at this point we could go ahead and load in the spool. You have to watch it when you go to load the spool now, because this braid has a tendency to get caught in the sidewalls. A little bit of grease onto the shaft. I'll load that in. Be careful with that braid. This time I think we're in there without that. Sometimes it happens where you wind up with the braid getting stuck. All right, find the top side this way, and then remember it came out from the top. Put a little bit of grease onto the back side here. Line it up. It came from the top, so make sure that as you go to reinstall, it's top facing like that. And you should be able to give it a half a turn there, and then you lock it down with this screw that came across. So we're kind of retracing our steps in reverse, right? The way we took it off and are putting it back together again. We'll take our click mechanism. Remember we said that button side goes down. 2 tension washers. Star adjuster. Now when you get your star adjuster down to where it's going to meet that click ratchet, just going to be careful about it. You're probably going to have to push that click spring in. Just trying to get it squared here. Kind of hard sometimes when you're trying to do it on the camera. You lose your perspective of where you are in terms of square. But just take your time. Eventually you will get it. And this is the point I'm talking about. Right now you have that little point of the click mechanism up against the wall there. Don't force it. Just kind of get it to that point and just use a little screwdriver or something to push it in for a moment. And then you'll be able to walk it past there. There you go. All right, handle is next. There's a little shim washer that goes between the handle and the star adjuster. Walk this one back. Now you got your click going there. Nice and tightened down. Nut. That's a 10mm nut if you're playing along. It always helps to have the tools on your side before you get started. It's sort of like the cooking shows you see where they have all of their vegetables and the like all cut up before they start cooking, right? Okay, one more turn here. Generally speaking, if you're perpendicular with this line and the hole, you will be able to mount that little cap without moving it. Give it a visual. We have a visual there where it can accept the tie-down screw for that holder. And we'll tighten it up. We'll see how we did. I can know with good conscience that if I go fishing, the reel's not going to fail. And I know if I do eventually sell this reel that I can say that it's been serviced. This one's turning nicely. Sometimes when you go ahead and service and you put the grease in the 2 end spots, the reel will be tight. Just back it off a little bit. Eventually it'll wear that down. Make sure that this is functional. If you don't like the spin, back it off a little bit more and it'll spin like crazy. That's all about you and about how you cast and the backlash and control to it. Okay, one more on this. We've got a flipper switch. If we move that to on, just make sure that it pops back up, which it does. I fish it in the off. I don't fish it in the flipper position. So there you go. So I'm going to put this on a rod. I'm going to go take it down to the local pond. I'm going to do some casting with it, see how it feels. If I like the feel of it, maybe we'll leave it on the rod for a while. And if I don't, well, there's a market for him. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you stay well. stay watching, stay safe with this pandemic. And again, if you are a first responder, thank you. If you know a first responder, please thank them. And please stay well and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.